Welcome to the video. Well, I got me a cold Topo Chico. Thought I would maximize my time that I have with this phone. So, we're going to do another little reading of this. It's the March 1975. If you really like it, you could probably find one somewhere online. We've already read about the coral. And I want to read this one. Old Pawn, the real Indian jewelry. And let's see what this picture is. My gosh. A treasure in old Indian jewelry and personal adornment from the Tanner Indian Arts private and special collections. Bracelets, rings, and pin, lower right, are by the late Fred Pishlakai, one of the first known native silversmiths to stamp his work with a hallmark, his initials FP. Fred Pishlakai was the first generation descendant of slender old silversmith Pishlakai. I better show y'all. And slender maker of silver, his father and uncles, recognized by their peers and historians as innovators of new art forms and refinements, complementing the techniques evolved from the influence of the old Spanish and Mexican plateros. The brothers were most productive in the late 1870s through the early 1900s, when the traders made the fine cuts of turquoise available to the Indian silversmiths. Fred created many of the refined classic examples prized by collectors. His best work was done during the 1940s through 1960, after leaving New Mexico and Arizona. He operated his own business in Los Angeles and San Francisco, California. His tools and stamps are now the prized possession of D. Morris Silversmith in Sedona, Arizona. On the Navajo Indian Reservation, this is called the Catcher, photographed in 1906. On the Navajo Indian Reservation, anything 100 years old is very old, ancient, or antique. People and property of 50 years are old. Off the Navajo Indian Reservation, Old Pawn represents the real Indian jewelry. Contrary to opinions of pseudo-experts, Old Pawn was not jewelry made only for pawn. Old Pawn is not merely a piece of jewelry that an Indian has pawned because he has needed money. The search for Old Pawn is motivated by more than a romantic urge. For us, the value and emotional attraction for Old Pawn Indian jewelry is that it has been owned, appreciated, worn, and used by real living Indians. We see Old Pawn jewelry as an intimate relic of a people and a culture which is slowly and inevitably disappearing into history. The more we learn of Indian silversmiths and Old Pawn jewelry, the more we are convinced that the old silversmiths produced a higher standard of their art for Indians than they did for traders and non-Indians. Well, yeah, that makes sense. When a Navajo man or woman wanted a piece of jewelry, he went to a silversmith, usually a relative. The piece was made to order and scaled to the wearer's size and build. In most cases, the buyer furnished the makings, silver, turquoise, old jewelry, or whatever was needed. From John Adair's classic book, The Navajo and Pueblo Silversmiths. There's a book you need to get if you're finding this super fascinating, which I am. Sheep, goats, or calves are common forms of payment, and by this exchange many smiths have built up large flocks. Lacking cash, the buyers often secure on credit at the trading post some desired object for the smith. Turquoise or silver may be given for the jewelry, or the buyer may render some service to the smith, such as working in his fields or herding his sheep. Often silversmiths make jewelry with their own supplies in payment of a debt. Very frequently they pay for sings, which are held for members of their family, with bracelets, necklaces, conchas, and other. Page 33. Let's just look at some pictures as we go. Trading post at Tseng Canyon, Tsegi. Inside the pond vault at Ed Fouts Shiprock Company, Trading Company, Shiprock, New Mexico. Shonta, originally Shontoy Sunshine Water. There's a trading post in there. Painting. Pond room at Russell Fouts Tino's Post Trading Post, Arizona. Freighting out the wool, Old Keams Canyon. New and old dead pond from McGee's Indian Den, Scottsdale, Arizona. The McGee family has been identified with Indian trading for almost half a century. When founder Bill McGee decided to live in Scottsdale, younger brother Clifford F. McGee assumed ownership of 3 reservation trading posts at Keams Canyon, Polaca, and Pinon. His sons Farron and Bruce are well known on the reservation, where they carry on with the business started by Bill and Louise McGee. Meanwhile, in Scottsdale, Bill McGee's Indian Den is a showplace of Indian arts and crafts, old and new. Several outstanding Navajo silversmiths have always been employed by Bill McGee in his Scottsdale shops. Visitors are always welcome to enjoy the displays of all Indian arts and crafts. Autumn Cabito Trading Post. The old spiderweb turquoise necklace left from the McGee collection is a perfect example of original Navajo execution. Note that each stone is a different size and form. The unknown silversmith made a singular bed of silver for each stone. This technique is a one-of-a-kind classic. So that's what the good stuff looks like. Modern jewelsmiths grind the stones to fit a preformed setting or fabricate a setting to a cut and polished stone. The military at Chinle. I had mixed Sleepy Time with Tension Tamer, and man, that like knocked me out. And I'm perky now. Plus, I was relaxing like we do when we look at jewelry. And now I'm just really liking this one from the last lot we just did. You know, that bear theme. Okay, opposite page. Strands of old Heish wampum chunks and nuggets are most prized and valued according to their age and quality of natural patina. The old necklaces are generally pure turquoise and sometimes pre-treated in hot animal fat to harden the stone and stabilize the color. All cutting, drilling, and stringing were done by hand on the reservation. The quality of patina developed from the wearing and handling of the jewelry improves with use and age. Choklas and necklaces from McGee Indian Den. Choklas, originally made as earrings, were tied to a necklace when not in use. So these are earrings. Old stones were pure turquoise. The demand for modern type chokers has created a market. I guess it's a choker earring type, I don't know. For treated and stabilized beads, sometimes used with coral, silver, and other adornment. The nugget necklace of top grade old Kingman turquoise, courtesy of the jewel box, that's on the left, lower left. Modern nugget and silver beads, courtesy of the Saks Fifth Avenue. Lower right, rare and precious necklace of Jim Chrysocla. Bead, this I find interesting because I blow off the beads sometimes when they're not marked, and I need to be looking at some. Beads were the first things pioneer smiths made, beating them from old Mexican coins at the turn of the century. The large, showy silver bead was a symbol of fashion and status, worn proudly by Indian men and women. Later, beads were used in complement with turquoise, so this stuff's old. Triple strand choker of the graduated old silver beads, turquoise and silver rings. The gap. Beautiful paintings as well. Once a piece of classic old pawn becomes a part of a prime collection, it is priceless. The meticulous lapidary and silver detail in the concha belt and the matching channel work bracelet and necklace are beyond everyday duplication. Courtesy Jewel Box Vault Collection. There's a trading post right there. Beautiful country. Wool buying time. Quitos are pure Navajo in concept and execution. The silversmith makes quitos for the Pueblo Indians. As well as for the men of their own tribe. Classic quitos are worn during the dances in the Hopi and Zuni villages. Tinos posts. Below, two spectacular examples of contrast in design and execution. The massive silver structuring, right, is customized to the unusual and rare old Stormy Ridge, Nevada virgin turquoise. Left, note the fine silver work detail and the delicate quality of the number 8 mine Nevada virgin turquoise. The Navajo did not coin the word squash blossom for a bead which spreads out. Various versions of the form and outline are erroneously listed as squash blossoms. Worn with colorful Indian shirts and blouses, the stunning combination of old silver and pure turquoise is unsurpassed. The one-of-a-kind character of the old jewelry is evident in the variations noted in the squash blossom flowers and by the means of securing to the handmade bead necklace. These people have one heck of a collection. Concha and Buckle by Horace Smith, private collection. Concha belts and pawn. Concha belts are the favorite adornment of Navajo men and a major objects for the display of a silver worker's imagination and ability. The elegance and quality of the old concha belts and buckles are measured by the size and weight of silver and later turquoise. Conchas and buckles. Below and on the sides above from W.S. Dutton, Rare Things, Santa Fe, New Mexico. And here's the end of our article, so we'll get to that and we'll stop. And this is as far as I've gotten, so we'll read that one next time. Opposite page, I'm going to show you this, then I'll read it. And you can always pause the video. Yay figures an eagle dancer in Navajo jewelry by Helen Long, matriarch of an illustrious family of Navajo silversmiths. Works of Helen Long are at a premium in the collector's market. The eagle dancer figure was made for old-time trader Don Pablo, eagle dancer figure, and measures 7 inches across the wings. Oh, it's this one. From the Brian Hunter collection. Other pieces are from private collection of the artist's family. Okay. Table 2 lists some of the silver that Tom Burnside's made. Table 2. In each case, if there is a known relationship between the smith and the buyer, it is stated. One of my informants said to me, sometimes a silversmith, let me just make sure, it said go to 33, so that's where we're at. Makes a nice bracelet which catches the eye of some girl and she wants it, but maybe she doesn't have any money to buy it. Then sometimes the smith tells the girl that he will let her have it if she will give herself to him. The informant added, this happens most often among the younger unmarried smiths. Of course, they don't say anything about it, but everyone knows that silversmiths do that. I asked this same informant about the transaction between a smith and a buyer. He told me if a Navajo smith has a bracelet on his arm and another Navajo comes along and sees it, he might say, that's a nice bracelet. How much would I have to offer to get a bracelet like that? The silversmith might say, if you like this bracelet, how much do you think you could give me? I don't think that you have enough money, and you know that it is expensive. Then the other fellow might say, I will give you $20 for it. And the silversmith would tell him how long it took him to make it and what a hard job it was. Then he would say, I want $30 for it because the materials and the time cost a lot of money. The buyer will say, I will pay you whatever you say because you know how much it cost you to make it. The Navajo buying the bracelet would then take it, and he would feel proud because he had paid so much money for it. A smith is doing the Navajo a favor when he sells him jewelry for a high price, because then the buyer can boast of how much he paid. He wouldn't be able to do this if he sold it to him for a cheap price. When a smith sells jewelry to a trader, it isn't like that. He sells the silver for whatever the trader offers him for it. He meets the trader's price. He doesn't care about what the white man thinks of the silver. Silversmiths stamp designs on the silver which they sell to the white man that they wouldn't put on the jewelry if they were selling it to another Navajo. The Navajo won't buy silver made just any old way. Indian jewelry served as decoration, a display of wealth, and as collateral against loans at the trading post. The pawn rack was an important and respectable part of the economic and social life of the Navajo. Jewelry moved in and out of pawn at regular seasonal intervals, synchronized to the spring and fall lamb, wool, and harvest activities. Much of the jewelry was withdrawn from pawn during the summer dances and ceremonials and returned to the vaults during the winter months. The discerning Navajo knew beauty and excellence in craftsmanship and would not wear sloppily made, poorly constructed silver. The quality and color of turquoise may not have been the best, but the silversmithing was something else. The Navajos kept their silver bright, shining, and untarnished by brushing it in yucca, suds, and water. The amount of cash or credit advanced depended on the amounts of silver and turquoise and the owner's credit rating with the post. It was seldom that a Navajo pawned all his silver with one trader. Old established traders set their own time limits with the individual, regardless of the general law, which only required traders to hold pawn for 30 days. Ellis Tanner operates one of the few remaining licensed pawn racks at Gallup, New Mexico, and will not accept jewelry with treated turquoise or of non-Indian origin. Ellis holds jewelry in the vault for 90 days. If the loan contract is not satisfied or renewed, it goes on display in the warning case for 30 days before it is classified as dead pawn. The wise and respected trader knows the value of good Indian jewelry and also knows the sensitivities and problems of his Indian patrons. He will generally inform the pledgee of the potential market value of his jewelry and in most cases will not offer dead pawn for resale in the tribal area. In summary, the old pawn racks were rich and splendid sources of the jewelry created by the finest Navajo silversmiths of their day for their own people and uncontaminated by taste and influence of alien people and cultures. If a piece of old Navajo pawn could talk, what a story it would tell of dances, ceremonials, and happy times along the beauty way of Indian life by Joseph Stacy. So I'll just scan this if you want to read that. So we'll stop here today. I'm going to say thank you to everybody. We had a good evening. Y'all are going to see this tomorrow. And I am headed off to get some rest.